Hi everybody, this is Darryl and a music director of the Victoria Symphony Orchestra for yet another episode of VSO Viral videos. This time it features our principal percussionist, James Young. James Young has been with the orchestra even longer than I have, and you'll hear that when he gives his personal message to you all. And he has been serving faithfully as principal percussion. One of the things about percussion is that it's not like being a clarinet player or a violin player where you could just have your one instrument, but percussionists have literally thousands of percussion instruments, and they spend a lifetime collecting all kinds of things. And you'll find that as you watch James's video that he's not unlike many percussionists who have tons and tons of equipment, sticks, and all kinds of drums, cymbals, and all kinds of different percussion instruments. Yeah, you'll find that as you go on. So I'm going to leave it to James to tell you a little bit about himself and give you a little performance as a percussionist. That's James Young, our principal percussionist for the VSO. Enjoy.
Being a symphony orchestra percussionist involves a lot of hurry up and wait. Sometimes during long periods of waiting, I answer all of my email I receive from our VSO patrons and our students. Since the email's been stacking up, I thought it might be kind of fun to respond to all these emails with you along for the ride. So welcome to my viral video. I'm James Young. I'm the principal percussionist of the VSO. Before we go any further, I just want to ask you to like this video, subscribe to our VSO YouTube channel here, and grab you some coffee or tea, something to drink, and let's get started with some email questions. First question's from Paul. How long have you played in the Victoria Symphony, and how did you become a member? Well, I've been playing in the orchestra for like 28 years, since 1991-92 season, back when our conductor was William Kirschke. And I lived in San Antonio for 25 years. And while I was there, I had come to know a bunch of musicians, and some that played in Victoria, and they said, hey, we need some extra players and substitute player help down in Victoria. So I went down and played, and soon thereafter I auditioned for an opening and won a spot. So been loving it ever since. Next question's from Alita at Juan Lynn Elementary School. I wonder if Alita went to see Peter and the Wolf. I bet you she has. Okay, says, do you live in Victoria? If not, where do you live and what do you like about it? Oh, well, I actually live back in my hometown of Fort Worth, Texas, and we call it Cowtown, the city of cowboys and culture. It's well known for the history we have here of the cattle drives. Now, the cattle used to be driven from South Texas down around Victoria and Kingsville area. Cattle drives would come up through Fort Worth, and now we're not only known for that, but we're also known for our world-class art museums. So we're a very cultural city here. The Kimball Art Museum, the Amon G. Carter Museum of American Art, and also the Modern Art Museum. So if you're an art lover, you've got to come to Fort Worth. And then something that makes Fort Worth very special and unique is that we were the home of Van Cliburn, the pianist who won the first Tchaikovsky piano competition in 1958. He set the world on fire because the Soviet Union wanted to have a piano competition to let the world know that they were the cultural mecca of the world. And lo and behold, a Texan won the competition, Van Cliburn. He was the only classical musician to ever receive a ticker tape parade in New York City. So he comes back home, comes to Fort Worth, and soon thereafter, some people put together a piano competition in his name, and now the Van Cliburn, which happens every 4 years, the Van Cliburn International Piano Competition, is one of the world's most sought-after piano prizes. And so the reason why I'm telling you about this is that within the Victoria Symphony, for the past 5 years, we have had a series of concerts featuring people that were first, second, or third place finalists in the Van Cliburn competition. It's a very prestigious prize, and when you get that high up in that competition, you get to go play all over the world. And so thanks to James and Tina Wayne in Victoria, they sponsored this series, and that's something I hope that we can continue to do. But by the way, next May of the year 2021, the Van Cliburn will occur once again. Let's see here. Next question is from Kathy at Howell Middle School. how did you become a percussionist? Well, I started off playing piano in childhood and middle school, and then when I got to high school, I went to ask the band director if he needed a piano player. Truth be told, I did not like regular PE class. No fun. I found out that if you're in the marching band, you get PE credit. Now, unlike other drummers, I didn't take band in middle school, junior high. So I was very far behind. But he connected me to Preston Thomas of the Fort Worth Symphony. He was a principal percussionist there. And I started taking lessons from there. I joined the youth orchestra in Fort Worth, world famous youth orchestra, and went on to North Texas State University, which they call University of North Texas now. And then I also had the pleasure and the honor and the very hard work of playing in the Phantom Regiment Drum and Bugle Corps. And that was a fascinating experience as well. And they're way up in northern Illinois. Then I just spent a lot of time listening to other musicians teach and learning what they were learning how to do and teaching how to do it. This is Michael from Victoria College. So just what does a principal percussionist do? What I do as a principal percussionist is I manage the section of players, and in the section I manage those guys, and I manage the instruments and what we have to use out there. I coordinate the musical requirements, the sound that we're going to make, coordinate all that with our conductor. I also coordinate the staffing needs with our personnel manager. Sometimes a piece of music may require 6 people to play the percussion parts, and so we have to make sure we get out those extra players. We have 3 people that play in the section normally, aside from our timpanist. And also I have to coordinate our large instrument needs with our production manager, so we don't bring all of our equipment with us, but our production managers have to get the xylophones, a bass drum, the timpani out on stage, and all the big stuff. And I have to work on that. Probably the most challenging and most tedious part of the job of being the principal is I assign percussion parts to all the other players in the section. It works differently than the other section in the orchestra. When the principal flute sits down, she's giving the first flute part. Second flute is given the second flute part. Our section works completely differently because our parts could be written all over the place in different copies of the music, and so we kind of have to do a lot of X's and O's like in football, or like a batting order in baseball, and we actually have to tell who's going to play what and map it out every single concert. It's tedious, but it's actually a fun challenge. This is from Jack of... This is funny. This is from Jack of All Trades Enterprises. Okay, Jack. It says, as a business owner, I've learned that musicians can have multiple talents and skill sets. Have you ever had an interesting job outside of the music world? Yes, I have, Jack. I used to own, actually, a small rustic furniture store called Hill Country Rustics. And it was home furnishings, decor, decorative art, things like that. It was a fun experience, and that business lasted up until the recession of 2008. One thing I learned about that business is I learned the definition of an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is a person that takes a sizable amount of money and spends through it very quickly. And yeah, it was a difficult time when the recession hit. So that closed that business up in 2008. One of the funnest jobs I've ever had outside of music was something that was supposed to be seasonal, but it turned out to be full-time, as well as all my music stuff. And I used to work for a company called Rio San Antonio Cruises. I drove the riverboats on the San Antonio River. Yeah, have you ever ridden the boats on the San Antonio River? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I spent my days driving in circles, repeating myself. And I absolutely love that because I love Texas history. I love San Antonio history. And by the way, there's no Texas without San Antonio. And it just, once you tell that story 1,000 times, you really have an ear for history. And so anytime I hear any kind of histories, even Victoria area, Goliad, South Texas, I just eat it up with 2 spoons. When I moved back here to Fort Worth, a man started a tour on the Trinity River up here, and I got to go work for him last year. We'll see what happens with all this COVID stuff if he's going to start the boat back up. So if anybody down in Victoria wants to start a river cruise ride on the Guadalupe River, I'm your guy. We can do that. This is from Randy. Randy from Backstage. They have a saying in show business that the show must go on. Has there ever been anything that got in the way of you being able to perform on a concert? Well, yeah, it's kind of sad, but the only show I've ever missed in Victoria, actually in all my career, the only show I missed was when my mother passed away, and that was January of 2004. And so she passed away on the morning that we were supposed to have our first rehearsal, and so I had to get a friend from the San Antonio Symphony to come play for me. But that's all okay. Now there's been some near miss situations. One of our players in the section back in the old concert hall over at the college, it was Barry. He broke his arm between the dress rehearsal and the evening performance, out four-wheeling. And so as we were all gathering to play the concert Saturday night, we were switching parts. So I had gone through rehearsals learning my parts, another player had gone through learning her parts, and we were all swapping parts to cover the parts that were going to be too crazy for Barry to play. And so you have to be on your toes, a last minute thing. And then a couple of years ago in Corpus Christi Symphony, I played Bolero, the snare drum part for Bolero, which drummers love it and we hate it because it is the same rhythm over and over and over for about 16 to 17 minutes. And so it's one little rhythm. It starts off super soft and it gets super loud over the course of the 16, 17 minutes. And I had the flu. I had 102 fever when I got off stage. And there was no way to not play that. I had to play that. And so that was a challenge. And it was in that performance. I actually didn't mess it up. I didn't get distracted from all that. Now, you remember when the flu was a big deal? All right. This is Barb from the north side. Sometimes you have more instruments on stage than I can count. Some of them I know by name, but some of them are small and just look like gadgets and gizmos. What kind of interesting instruments and gadgets do you have? Well, I have a bunch of interesting little things, and I'm not a craftsman like Maestro One is a craftsman. I build things for pure functionality, and one of the things that I had to make one time was a triangle holder. This is just a piece of galvanized metal underneath this gaff tape. You can spend about $75 or $80 to get something from one of the fancy percussion companies that does the very same thing, or you can spend about $7 or $8 on a piece of metal that will hang your triangles on. And so I can put it on a stand here. This little inside baseball for you today. Love it. And I'll show you what we'll do. You've seen this. I've used it many times in Victoria. Works out very well. But sometimes when we play our triangle, we're playing some simple notes, just one at a time like this. We're try to hold the triangle. But sometimes we might have to get to the triangle very quickly and play it maybe with two sticks, two beaters. Put it like that. Maybe I need to have multiple beaters or multiple instruments as well, and I can have them both up there. Sometimes at our downtown rhythms or our spooktacular concert. So, isn't that cool? That's pretty cool. Now, there's another instrument here. These are the castanets. Sometimes we don't have time to pick those up, or sometimes we have to play a particular rhythm that's more difficult to play in the hands like this, and so we need a little machine. If we could have something holding those castanets, it would be great. Now here's the funny thing. You can spend $150 on a machine from the fancy percussion companies to hold your castanets for you, or you can make one for $12. Piece of wood out in the garage. I don't like to throw things away. And these little mop holders, these are those little clamps that you put up on the wall to hold your mop. Well, it works great for castanets. I'll show it right here for you. I know this is a very time-consuming video, but you know what? What else are we going to do, right? Have some fun here. So I just pull these little mop handles back, these holders, and slide these castanets in there, and voila, check that out. And then I can also put it got a hole in the middle. I can actually put it on a stand. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but I can actually put it on the same stand as my triangles and have it all sitting there. That doesn't take up any table space. Very convenient, very convenient. And so I'll mess with that later. That's a lot of fun, coming up with gadgets. Now again, it's not the craftsmanship that Maestro One has in his workshop. It's purely functional. Purely functional. And that works well for me. All right. So, oh, also too, you're gonna love this. Last fall in November in Corpus Christi, we were doing a bunch of opera music, and there's a piece, a big opera by Mozart called Die Fledermaus. Well, one of the arias in there is requires cowboy spurs. And I live in Fort Worth. I have cowboy boots. I don't have spurs. So I went out to look for spurs that could be used, and they're very expensive. For about $20, I went and bought the spurs parts and made my own little spurs. Isn't that fascinating? So I just sit here and play them like this. And the song was not, I've got spurs that jingle, jangle, jingle. But I have these in case you ever need to borrow those. We'll never play that piece of music again, I'm sure. Now there's some other instruments that come out of nature. If you need to make a bird chirping sound, you can spend a lot of money on a nightingale whistle, or you can go to the Mercado in San Antonio and get you a little songbird like this. $5. You use it once every 3 years, maybe. And so have that. You put a little water in there. That's how that works. There's some other instruments that happen in nature, and one of them is this bell. This is a bell off of a fire alarm. I put a handle on it, like a cymbal handle, so I can hold it. This is the bell off the fire alarm in my dormitory. Well, the fire alarm wasn't being used anymore. It was defunct, and I harvested it from there. So that's how that goes. And also another instrument that happens in nature that you wouldn't know that we'd have. We had to use an anvil sound for the piece called World of Warcraft, and the instrument that I brought wasn't a great sound. And so Jeff Stone, one of our bass players at the time, harvested the truck hitch off the back of his pickup truck, and I'll tell you what, we've used it quite a few times. Pretty good. Isn't that cool? Now, here's some interesting instruments I have here. I have cymbals and gongs from Wuhan, China. Wuhan, China. Let me see here. This is a Chinese cymbal right here. Ooh, that sounds like a gong. And then back here, I have another gong. That's called a wind gong. And on the wall back there is a chow gong. They call it a chow gong. I can't hit that. It's kind of tied to the wall. But if I need to get it down and use it for a performance, and I have done that, it's available to me. And it's pretty cool. Like my little tree right here. This is a flowering Wuhan tree. It is a sonorous symbolic corona variety, an indoor succulent plant. Yeah, pretty cool. All right. William from Rockport says, what have you been doing around the house these days? Well, I've been practicing, and I've been repairing instruments. A lot of this stuff gets broken and worn out, needs tweaking and tuning, all that. And one of the things I've been doing around the house is actually cleaning out the cupboards and the pantry. And so in doing that, I discovered that I have a lot more percussion instruments than I even knew that I had. I noticed that I have the minced onion. That one. Oh, and this is a great one. Himalayan salt right there. So you have these instruments in your house as well. The cheapy bacon bits, those sound good. And even your toothpicks. Pretty cool, isn't it? Now, also too, if you take vitamin A like I do, those work well together. And also too, some of us in my age group are taking that little once a day aspirin. And that's what aspirin sounds like. So if you are going through your kitchen and you are cleaning out things, you might find lentils sitting in the back. Those are really good. Peppercorn. Whatever this stuff is, it's I think Israeli couscous. I have no idea. I don't eat couscous or quinoa or anything good for you like that. Popcorn. I found a bag of bulk popcorn in the back. And then some orzo. Now guess what you can do with all this stuff, my friends? Now this is what I do with my students. You can make maracas out of your Perrier bottles. Isn't that cool? Oh, I also found some coffee beans in here, and I put them inside a metal canister, Christmas canister, with all those shortbread cookies you get for gifts. Listen to this. Fantastic. You might even just have a box of aceni, your Ronzoni aceni, and just like that, it sounds fantastic. So you know what you do? You take some of these things, peppercorn. Remember I said I found the peppercorn? That's what that sounds like. Here's the lentils. You can do that in your house. And orzo. This is a smooth sound. And inside this container is your kosher salt. All sorts of different sounds. So please, when you are looking for something to do with the kids, the grandkids, do not get rid of your containers. Parmesan container. For those nights you can't sleep, save your melatonin bottle. Put some popcorn in there. All sorts of wonderful things to use are right there in your kitchen cupboard, and you can have, like we have here, pantry percussion. So that's kind of stuff. So Terry says, I have noticed that arts organizations are getting more creative in enhancing experiences for their patrons. What kind of creative ideas do you have that you would implement for Victoria Symphony if you could? It's kind of funny that you asked that, because I've always wanted to do this, and I think it'd be really fantastic. But I would love to have post-concert players press conferences. Yeah, it would be just a great way to give an inside baseball experience for our fans. Can you imagine how much fun that would be? We'd have a media room set up backstage, lights, cameras, reporters, and players taking their seats at the head table. And then the questions come. Next question says, my name is Joyce. I like to shop online to keep from driving so much on our busy streets here in Victoria. I understand that. It's getting busier. I mean, have you seen the traffic here? It's crazy. Where are all these people coming from? Where are they going? I mean, I moved here to get away from the big city. At any rate, I like a good deal. Have you found any good deals online? Oh, yes, Joyce. I have found a fabulous deal, and I hope they still have some there available for you. And I got it online at the JCPenney clearance sale. It's a designer travel bag and gift set. Perfect for these days. Let me get it and find it. It is, you're going to love it. It is the Fauci and Burks designer travel bag and gift set. I know it's in the minimalist style, but it's the companion gift set is absolutely amazing. Let me show you what all is in here. Oh yeah. First and foremost, toilet paper, gloves, a mask or two, and just in case you need it, designer duct tape in a nice white color. Antiseptic in case you need that. And what's a trip without peanuts? It's a lot bigger than the airline peanuts, I guarantee you that. Oh, and in case it's time just to give up, a copy of the Mozart Requiem. You can start singing now. It'll take a while to learn it. And looks like there's something else in here. Yes, it is. Oh, it's a travel guide. A travel guide. Isn't that cool? Let's see where you can go. Oh, oh no, you can't go. and that's the travel guide by the CDC, the Centers of Domestic Control. And included in there are 2 tickets to paradise. So why don't you pack your bags and we'll leave tonight. Well, we'll see. Check out the JCPenney and see if you can get one of those. And finally, George from downtown asked this question. He says, if you knew then what you know now, what would you do differently in your musical life? Well, George, that's a fabulous question. And my answer would be that I would have never stopped taking piano lessons. Don't forget to click like on this video and subscribe to our VSO channel. And if you have any curious questions for me, do not hesitate to let me know. You can email me at jamesyoungdrum@yahoo.com. jamesyoungdrum@yahoo.com. And now to my musical contribution for our time together. On July the 11th of the year 1798, in our nation's capital of Philadelphia, President John Adams signed an act of Congress which established the United States Marine Band. Beginning as a unit of only 32 drummers and fifers, the Marine Band today is 125 members strong and is America's oldest, continuous active professional music organization. And it has a very special mission, and it's to provide music for the President of the United States. Now, President Thomas Jefferson himself was an accomplished musician and recognized the unique relationship between the band and the chief executive. And it was Thomas Jefferson that gave the band its title, the President's Own. Now, the U.S. Marine Band is America's musical ambassador, and it counts in its rank a collection of our nation's most polished musicians. They perform at the highest levels of excellence, but they also like to have fun too. So the band has produced a fun, interactive project for all the rest of us who would only dream of playing in the President's Own, a John Philip Sousa play-along called The Stars and Stripes Together. And so on Wednesday, May 27th, bandsmen from all across the country and around the world gathered around their computers and their TVs to get a chance to play alongside the Marine Band. I hope you agree with me that sometimes you just need some Sousa. May God bless the wonderful patrons and sponsors, management, and musicians of the Victoria Symphony family. And may God bless America.
Marine Band in concert to join you this time for our final performance together. Let's make this one count. So, are you ready? You've got all your stuff ready to go. Okay, here we are. This is The Stars and Stripes Forever, our worldwide joint virtual performance.